Welcome back to Trust the Effing podcast. This is episode 4. And today, Jen and I are chatting about our morning routines now versus how they were in the past, as well as some of our tools that we use when we feel triggered or like we can't regulate our emotions. So stay tuned, grab a cup of tea, and listen through to the end because there's a lot of laughs in this episode too.
Some really unsettling news that I received start of last weekend. And it completely threw me for a loop. It left me feeling really dysregulated, stirred up a lot of emotions, anxiety, stress, and I struggled through the whole weekend to really like self-regulate and bring myself back down to a place where I just felt like my stress level just went through the roof, and it took a lot for me to bring myself back down. And I thought it would be really helpful if we shared with our listeners today some of the tools that we use on a daily basis. And also, when challenges strike, what do we go to in our toolbox to help bring us back to feeling good? So, what do you think about that? Would you to some of our listeners about what happens when challenges strike and your emotions get out of whack?
Well, first off, I'm sorry that we're struggling. We all do that as humans at certain times, but it never feels great. And I've definitely had, I would say, more than my share of those moments. So I do have a lot of tools, and I feel like they've grown and changed over the years. I've tried different things at different times, but I definitely have my go-tos. So okay, here's how it goes. I wake up and I try to, it's become more of a habit now, so it's more embedded, but I try to say, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for this new day. I feel like starting it with gratitude is really helps me a lot. Just to always, for many years, not always, for the last 10 or so years, I had a very set meditation practice every morning. So I would wake up, I would say the thank you, I would go to the bathroom, I would come back, and I would set up my meditation. And usually just like 15 or 20 minutes, guided ones, and I would do that. And then this might sound like a lot to a lot of people, but really this is all happening in like 25 minutes. It's not that long. So I do the meditation, which feels great. And then I pull a few cards. So I have a deck that is actually the first tarot deck I ever had. And it's an angel deck by Doreen Virtue that a friend had gifted me. So I always pull, it used to just be like pull one card, but then it became like I pull 4 cards for the energy of the day. And it just gives me an overall picture of kind of like, okay, that's how this is maybe going to go. And like, these are the energies of what's going to play out in that. Yep. And then I get up and I have my tea, and then, different things happen after that in the morning, but that's kind of my set mornings. And I noticed I was getting away from the meditations, and I just recently pulled those back in because I was doing them at later times of the day, or, like it was kind of not as set in stone, but now it feels better. Like I feel a lot better now that I've brought it back in to do it in those orders. I think there's something to be said about the order that we do things in, because I think it then becomes in alignment with the way the world, the universe orders things, right? Like seasons go in a certain order, like the sun rises at certain times, the tides go in and out. So I feel like when I started getting more into my own set routines, it helped me to just be in a better alignment with the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I felt less separated. Would that be a better way to say it? I felt less separated. So those are generally my dailies. What are your daily routines like?
Oh, I was just thinking as you were talking about your steps that you take in the morning, I was like recalling years ago when I would just roll out of bed, race through the shower, and get in my car and like run to work. There was no intentionality there. It was like hitting the snooze alarm a few times, waiting until the last second, and getting up and running to start the day. And I can remember how much more chaotic I would feel with
Yes.
having and how my day would go in accordance with that, the chaos that I'm bringing into my morning by just like jumping out of bed, racing through the shower and running to work and starting the day. And
Mhm.
here I am, and just not feeling like really prepared and settled and at like, centered for the day.
Yeah.
So when I started to like go through learning about setting routines and getting up and bringing more intention to my day, it just changed the game completely. So I know, like at one point, especially when I was in law enforcement, I started setting the routine in the morning where I would get up a few minutes early and I would go do some push-ups and some crunches and do some stretches before I would get ready for the
Mhm.
day. And that would bring like a boosted level of energy and strength and positivity to my mornings. And then over time, it also changed, like according to what was going on in my life. So at one point, I would get up and instead of doing push-ups and crunches and stuff, I would sit and journal for a few minutes,
Mm.
practice the gratitude. Thank you for waking me up today, and set an intention in my journal for the day for maybe just a feeling I wanted to experience for that day,
Mhm.
or for maybe some specific project that I was going to be working on and what goal I wanted to set for that project for the day. And then over time, adding things like starting with a green smoothie, or at one time I was on a celery juice kick,
Yeah.
so blending up my smoothie or my celery juice and really just spending the morning a little bit more relaxed, centered, and a little bit more of a routine, right? Instead of just racing off for the day. And now my mornings, now that I'm retired and self-employed, my mornings look something like this. I usually wake up without my alarm clock. I don't set an alarm. I wake up when I'm ready to wake up. I get up, I reach for my journal, and I write a little gratitude list out. Just 3 things that
Mm.
come to mind that I'm thankful for. Might be a good night's sleep. It might be the fact that I feel safe and protected. It could be an array of things. And then I do what you do. I get out my headphones and I do like a somewhere between a 10 and a 20-minute long guided meditation,
Mhm.
depending again on what I want to bring in for my day. What's the intention I want to set for this day? It might be breath work. Oftentimes recently, I've been more involved in breath work in the morning. So it might be like a morning breath work, guided meditation sort of thing. Or it might be like a morning energize me, get me ready for the day type of raise my vibration type of guided meditation. It just depends on what I'm feeling when I wake up that morning. And then I actually will sit and journal some more after my guided meditation, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy my breakfast when I'm ready to eat. So it's a very relaxed way that I start my day, and I feel like that brings more of a relaxing element to the rest of my day versus, if I just got up, grabbed the cup of coffee and started in.
Mhm. Yep,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that because once I get my tea, I go outside. And I
Mhm.
live here in Costa Rica, and mornings are probably my favorite time here. The birds, the chirping, maybe the monkeys are going by, or just like admiring the way the sun is shining through the
Yeah.
trees. And I do, and I totally relate to you. I used to, I mean, it's been a lot of years since I had to wake up to an alarm. But oh yeah, like hitting snooze or like maybe not hitting snooze and just having to like, oh no, I have to get up right now. Like I often wouldn't give myself the snooze time so that I
Mhm.
wouldn't do that, so that I would just like get up. But then it was like, yeah, the mad dash of like,
Mhm.
yeah, you grab your coffee and then like I used to be sitting in a car in traffic and like just a very different, I would listen to the radio, I guess. I don't know. It's just very different. And I definitely feel calmer with,
Yeah.
being able to take the time. And I guess if I could go back to those times, yeah, if I could wake up just a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
maybe go to bed a little earlier and be able to give myself, even if I wasn't into meditation and stuff back then, like if I had just given myself the time to have the coffee in
Yeah.
my home or in a peaceful just not so rushed. Everything was just always a bit of a mad dash. And I think, I mean, I used to live in Toronto. It's a busy city. Like, it's got that vibe and that energy, which is exciting, but I think it often left me feeling a little bit drained. So
Yeah.
I'm really happy that I've learned these tools. And now when I visit there, I very much use them. Like, go to, like, I have to use them, or I feel very, what's the
Yeah.
word, discombobulated. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Even when we travel, like I think it's even more important to continue the rituals when we travel so that we still continue to enjoy wherever we are. You know, for instance, things can get out of whack. Like you're eating different foods, your digestive
yeah,
tract can get all crazy. You're sleeping in a different bed in a different place. And sometimes like that's enough to just mess you up internally, shake your energy level a little bit. So like I know personally for me when I travel, I need these tools to
yeah,
make sure that I stay feeling good and keep my energy levels in check and stuff too.
yeah. Do you know
Yeah.
something else I do when I travel? Because I am so sensitive to other people's energies and I do absorb things very easily. So, yes, I try to shield my energy just by imagining like a bubble of light around me, or, ask for help from the other side to protect me or whatever. But the big thing I do is when I go into hotel rooms, especially, I bring Palo Santo. You could use like sage or something as well. And because I used to have a lot, like, major trouble, like I would have the worst sleeps ever. And I would
Mhm.
be all shaken. And like my husband would be like, "What is going on with you?" And then we realized I'm probably absorbing whatever energies have been left in this hotel room. And a lot of hotel rooms don't even have windows that open, right? Some of
Wow.
them
Yeah.
don't have. So, like, if they do, I open those right away. That's like the first
Mhm.
thing I do. But yeah, I know you're not supposed to obviously smoke in hotels. So I always get a little nervous of what they're going to think about the Palo Santo I'm burning, but I haven't had any problems yet. But I do, I clear the energies and then I just feel better. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now it's like our energy. And it's also
Right.
traveling, you pick up lots of stuff. If you're on an airplane, like, you're in a small space with a lot of people, right? So you may be
Yeah.
picking up their stuff or their
Yeah.
worries or their fear or their anger or whatever it is. And so I really do, yeah, make sure that I'm grounding. Eating
Mhm.
properly is important, drinking lots of water. And then, yeah, my Palo Santo trick seems to be my go-to. So I've been at people's houses where I've used it, like in the bedroom I'm staying in or whatever. And they've been like, what's wrong with the energy in my house? And I'm like, oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
like, I
god.
didn't see any offense of it at all. Like, I'm not judging you at all. I
That's so funny. Like I can imagine you like smudging the homeowner. Just your energy's off.
no. No, I would never do that. I would never do it to unless they wanted me to. If they're like, "Here, do it to me." But I
Yeah.
remember years ago, my friend coming home and I hadn't like smudged her house. I hadn't even really cleared it. I was doing some yoga and I'd rolled out the mat. And so at that time, part of my routine when I would do yoga is I would usually light a candle and maybe
Mhm.
have a crystal there and have my journal there. And I would do the practice and maybe write a bit after or whatever. And I decided to burn the Palo Santo just a little bit, just to like, I didn't have a candle. So I just thought it would like be my thing I could use. And she came home and was like very upset. And I felt very terrible because I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not saying your house is full of bad energy or like, I was just also trying to clear like the travel off of my body, like I
Right.
wasn't. Yeah, it's so funny. So, yes, if
Oh
I
my
ever go to your house, anybody out there, do not take offense to my weird little rituals,
Next thing you know, you're pouring a salt ring around the outside of the house.
casting spells all over them. No, I don't actually know spells. I know some people do, but I don't know too many of those.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know.
but so I guess I'll ask you, what did you find helped you the most when you were feeling heavy and not being able to regulate your
Mm.
emotions?
I've become a really big believer in breath work.
Yeah.
And if anyone out there isn't familiar, the process of using our breath to ground ourselves and to calm ourselves is so huge. It's studied. You can Google it. Like we can use our breath to just relax ourselves and calm ourselves. We can use our breath to promote like a more focused state of mind. And some years ago, I came across this technique called box breathing. Years ago, I got involved in an officer wellness program through the job. And we were using this technique of box breathing, and it's something that they use in the military. Like the Navy
Mm.
SEALs are using this form of breath
Oh,
work. Navy SEALs use this form of breath work to help focus and center themselves and bring themselves back to a grounded feeling after critical incidents. Really kind of a simple breath. You breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold again for 4 seconds, and you repeat that cycle for at least 5 minutes. You just set a timer. So I just set the timer on my fitness watch and I just continue that breath. And sometimes even before 5 minutes is up, I feel like I've come back down to earth if I'm dealing with some really heavy emotions. That's probably my most favorite breath work technique to use. Other than that, I find that journaling has been really big for me, and journaling was never a part of my life until I would say the last few years. I guess I was always one of those people that was afraid their journal would be discovered and people would read it and it would be shared with the world and, the embarrassment that can come from that. Well, I've gotten over that because I've found the power in journaling, the power of writing. And sometimes things come out of your mind onto paper that you weren't even aware of. And when it comes out onto the paper, then it feels like it's out of you, that energy is out of you and like true healing can really happen. So journaling was really big for me over the weekend. And then the other big thing I felt really helped me was getting out in nature. So I live in the Adirondacks. There's, a million hiking trails and places to hike around here. And specifically in the Tupper Lake area, we've got this Tupper Lake triad. We've got these three like nice, short, lovely little hikes. So I grabbed my daughter and we went and hiked one of these little mountains. And just the process of moving my body, I felt like it helped me move that dark, heavy energy. And then there's a sense of accomplishment, all right, when you get to the top, and just the feeling of being deep in the woods, being in nature itself was so calming. Hearing the birds sing, seeing the trees, feeling the cleanness of the air was just so therapeutic for me. And again, like this is stuff that's studied, a big thing that they do up here in the Adirondacks, for instance, and I'm sure in a lot of other wooded areas, is something called forest bathing. And I
mm.
think it's like even originated, I believe, in Japan or something like that. And again, this is something that's studied. But just the process of going out into the woods and breathing in the air from the
Mhm.
trees and the plants and hearing the nature sounds and everything has been studied and shown to promote relaxation, to reduce levels of stress, to bring down blood pressure. And they've even
Mhm.
studied it for people who are suffering with like cancer and heart disease and how it assists people suffering with really debilitating diseases. Encourage people who, not necessarily if you're just struggling, but if you're just looking to bring some new element of calm and peace into your life, just get outside, get into nature. It's just so healing and so helpful. In a really beautiful, like paradise area of the world. What would you say about the area that you live in and if it's helped you?
I live in, a very quiet jungle area of Costa Rica. It's close to the ocean, so at high tide I can hear probably a 5-minute drive to get to the beach, but I can hear it often, and it's the different nature sounds. I mean, all the birds. I feel
Mm,
like it's a type of sound healing, right?
yeah.
A lot of people go with the sound bowls and the glass bowls and the gongs, and I mean, I love all that stuff too. I think we can get a lot of those in nature, and it's very grounding and very healing. And Costa Rica is so lush and just is so beautiful. The ocean, I think, is very healing as well. Salt water definitely is.
Yeah.
Um, I think for me, I feel really good around water.
Mhm.
even taking a bath, like when I lived in Canada and I wasn't, if I wasn't near a lake or anything, like even taking a bath, especially if you add like Epsom salts or something, is so
Yeah.
grounding and soothing. But yeah, the
Mhm.
benefits of nature, like, well, I'll tell you, I'll share a little story, a little tidbit. Years
Mhm.
ago, when I first moved down here, I got really into tree hugging. I got really into hugging trees. And yeah, I was really enjoying that. So I would go to like where there was no one around in the jungle and find some of these huge trees too. And I would hug them. First time sometimes I would just put my hand on them, and other
Yeah.
times I would give them a big whole hug. And I couldn't believe how great I felt. Like I just felt like it was taking all my energy and soothing me in some ways. And I thought it was really really interesting that was happening. And that, to be honest, that's one of the key ways that my husband and I connected when we first met, because he told me he hugs trees too. And I remember hearing him saying it and being like, did you just say you hug trees? Because that's what I had been doing a lot of. That was one of our connecting moments. Definitely, nature has been very, very healing for me living down here in Costa Rica. I mean, I grew up in Canada that had wonderful outdoors areas too, but I was living in Toronto before I moved down here for a number of years. So I wasn't spending as much time in nature. And just breathing the fresh air down here is,
Yeah.
and in your area too, I'm sure. Like the trees,
Yeah.
just so much oxygen. And I just feel like I
Absolutely.
breathe better. Yeah, my skin is
Yeah.
better. Definitely some huge benefits.
We've used the word grounding a lot, both you and me, throughout this, but
Mhm.
do you ever just go outside and just take your shoes off and walk around barefoot? Do you do that there?
Oh yeah. I actually have like shoes on the soles of my feet now because I've been barefoot. I've been barefoot. I could show you in the camera. Bare feet right now. Um,
Oh my
yeah, they're
god, look at those
very,
calluses.
I definitely use a what do you call it? A foot file. But they're strong. So I can walk barefoot on pretty much anything. Like I can walk on stones and whatever. So yes, my answer is yes, I definitely go outside to ground.
Well, again, and grounding is something did you ever watch there was a documentary done on grounding. There's a man who writes about it and, is an advocate for grounding because it healed so many physical ailments that he had, and the name is escaping me. If I recall, we'll try to put it in the show notes, but I remember watching the documentary where he was talking about the research that he did around grounding and just the process of walking barefoot outside on the earth or touching a tree or another piece of nature outside. But it actually helps balance like our electrons, right? Like we're taking
Mhm.
in like all these free radicals and from our daily lives, but then when we go outside and walk with our bare feet on the ground is like absorbing all of those free radicals from us and balancing out the electrons and everything in our bodies. So it's actually been studied. It's a well-known practice of grounding. And I found myself like I get a little like ick walking barefoot on the ground. Like I don't love it. I have like sensitive feet because I don't I
Yeah.
don't have like the shoes that you have on your, but I've made myself do it, and ultimately it does promote like a sense of relaxation and calmness in me when I've done it. I just have to get past the whole icky feeling of things sticking to
Yeah.
my feet. I guess what I want to say now is none of this stuff is meant to replace therapy or medical intervention by any means. All of these things, though, that we've mentioned can be complementary to somebody who's really struggling with some trauma in their life or with some kind of physical ailment or disease. So I would recommend to anybody who is dealing with some serious medical or health issue to also try some of these practices too, under the supervision possibly of a healthcare provider. But these
Mhm.
things can really enhance and even maybe speed up any kind of healing that people are going through.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I mean, I had gone through major medical issues, and so I have been healing them and trauma. And
Mhm.
these tools, yes, definitely there's more that's needed. Like you need the support, the therapy, or whatever it is that you're doing,
Mhm.
maybe doctors or whatever it is you're needing to heal, but the tools help. And for self-regulating, especially when we get triggered and feel like, for some people maybe they feel angry, or they can't, maybe they get a lot of anxiety or panicky, or really
Mhm.
really sad and depressed. Okay, we need to find ways to regulate ourselves so that we don't have to stay stuck in that, because
Right.
I don't know about you, but I've spent, it feels like, years of my life sometimes stuck in that. So to have learned these tools has really been a game changer for me, as I've gone through this life thing that we're doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you and I have talked so many times about all the different ups and downs that have happened in our lives, and serious life events and health crisis and real big shakeups, and developing these tools that we have over the years. A lot of them have stemmed from some of these really big life challenges. So we both know that these are like tried and true techniques for us, and hope that anyone listening would benefit from trying out any one of these things that we've offered today.
Yeah, and I think the best part is that a lot of them are free. They don't,
Hmm.
I mean, you can pay for wonderful, courses and
Yeah.
one-on-one sessions and breath work or yoga or whatever, but also you can flip on YouTube, or you can walk outside, or, there's a lot of free
Yeah.
resources too. And also maybe you're like, oh no, I don't want to go and be in a group setting, or, you feel nervous if it's your first time trying something. So you can try it at home in
Yeah.
your own safe space, and when you have the time, and
Hmm.
when you're needing them, and they're available. You don't have to spend $1 million to have access to these resources.
Absolutely. Nature's free.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all so much for joining us on today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. If you feel called to, please leave us a comment or review on the platform you heard us on today, or send us an email. We would love to hear from you at trusttheeffingpodcast@gmail.com. If you're looking for additional support in your awakening journey, or an intuitive reading from Rebecca, you can find her on social media at Trust the Effing Process. If you're a woman looking for holistic health and weight loss support and would like a consultation with me, you can find me on social media at Jennifer Fleischman_health coach, or email me at jennifer@jenniferfleischman.com. Of course, all this information and some other things from the conversation today are going to be linked in the show notes, and you can check those out. And please always know that you are exactly where you should be at any given moment in your life, and everything is unfolding as it should be. So please remember to trust the effing podcast. Thank you.